Does virtual reality make you a faster sim racer? Well, I set out to create the most authentic test that I could do on this. And what you're seeing on screen is me racing in VR and me racing in 2D, whatever you want to call it, at the same combination in iRacing. And the results were pretty, honestly, super insightful. Like, I learned things in the process of making this video that I just wish I'd done years ago, to be honest, because I've been racing in VR for years, since PSVR 1 on the PS4, and I've obviously been doing sim racing for such a long time on this channel, as you've seen. But I've never really done a comparison like this. I put my headset on other people and, you know, recorded their first impressions, but I've never drilled down like this before. So in this video, we're going to run through what it's like to drive in 2D and what it's like to drive in VR. What are the differences? What can actually make you faster? Is it a gimmick? What are the drawbacks or the limitations? Should you be thinking about getting a VR headset? And other things like, is it comfortable? Do you fatigue? I learned so much in the course of making this video, as I said. So this is Alton Park in the Radical SRA, an incredible combination. I'm actually pretty okay at this combination. I did it for a time trial for Race Logic against some of the fastest sim racing in the country, and I was able to hold my own actually. So pretty happy with that. Very tricky combo because the tyres take a while to sort of get into the window and you have to maintain them in the window. So it's a bit more about three-dimensional driving. So we're going to start here in 2D at Alton Park. And I'm going to tell you a few things that you might not have noticed before about driving in 2D. So in front of me is a monitor and I'm looking at the monitor and I'm sort of translating it in 3D. I think, by the way, it's easier to watch YouTube videos of racing than it is to sort of sim race. I'll let you think about that for a second. It's like it's very easy to watch a Formula 1 race on TV or watch the onboard shots, but to actually do that in person is much more difficult. I think there's something about watching it that enables us to take it in and our eyes can wander. But when you're actually sim racing, I mean, have a look how infrequently I blink, for example. I tend to blink at like certain moments when I know I've gone around a corner. I don't really blink in the middle of corners, and sometimes I don't blink until the next corner as well. That's a good way of looking at my mental state, like am I really focused or not. I also tend to tense up sometimes as well. I think more in 2D, but that's going to be interesting. We're going to see with the footage here, because Alton Park, such a tight, twisty circuit, and like I said with the tyres, the first lap or so, you're warming up the tyres essentially. You can't actually commit to the lines you want to commit to. If you do, you're going to fall off the track. Have a look how relaxed I am as well. In 2D, this is, I'd say, by the way, a benefit over VR, is that you're very aware of your surroundings, your presence, and the limitations as well. So we're looking at a 2D screen in front of us. We're trying to interpret from that three-dimensional space and get that through into our brain, and then get that through into our ankles and our hands and our fingers to, you know, do the next, you know, move, or to left or right, or throttle or brake, or maintain the same, or whatever. So we're having to do this interpretation. I think that's why some people are just naturally maybe a little bit better than that. Now, others, nothing wrong or good about that, but I think it's just a thing about sim racing in 2D. Now, something I'm going to let you know about that you wouldn't perhaps think unless you've raced in VR, is that once you race in VR, this view becomes very restrictive. You cannot look towards the apex like here. You can't look beyond the apex. You have a fixed look. Now, some racing games have tried to do a look to apex. For me, most memorably, Need for Speed Shift tried it, but it just doesn't really work if it's not your neck doing it. It just feels a little bit forced. So this is a limitation of 2D sim racing. You have this fixed angle, and then you're stuck with that field of view. And whatever's in your field of view is going to be in your field of view. Whatever's outside, you're not going to get. And that's why a lot of sim racers and other sims will drive on bonnet view, or even at esports level, they'll drive in third-person chase cam view to get that maximum field of view. This is iRacing. Unless you're going to do some hacks, you have to do this cockpit view. You can move your camera forward and sit on the bonnet, by the way, but it's frowned upon. I've never done it. So let's talk about the time trial a little bit, because this is really, like I said, authentic test. Very difficult combination. The tyres now are sort of coming up to temperature, and we can start to do those lines, and you can see that lap of 30.6 is what we're starting with, and that's off the bat. You can see the tyres didn't have the grip on that corner, so I had to sort of lift out of it. You can just see my inputs there, my brake and my throttle. I didn't glance at those at all during this time trial. In 2D though, I normally will have a look at them before the race just to check I'm happy with my brake pressure. Very controversial thing that, because a lot of people say, well, you can't look at that in a real racing car, so why should you look at it in sim racing? But I feel like, we're not sat in real racing cars, we're sat in virtual cockpit, so it's fair enough. And again, you can see me a little bit tensing up now, but then relaxing in the straights. I'm not sort of kind of tense the whole lap. I'm tense in certain moments, tense, and I'll probably relax here. You just see my posture sort of sit up a little bit. We're going to come through the chicanes here. We have to get so close, but again, you can't look towards the apex and you can't look towards the exit. So look, quite tense. Going to be really tense up here, my body. And then will we relax a little bit? Yes, I relaxed a little bit. See the actual chair move forward, which I've since changed to a bucket seat, by the way. So I've got a lot of thoughts about bucket seat versus normal seat. And we're going to see the lap times tumble. And I think it's important to show you all of this in 2D so we can have that really, like I said, authentic comparison with VR. This is the most one-to-one, I think, comparison that might exist actually about VR versus 2D sim racing in a very difficult combination. So we just went faster, 29.6. We'll try and go faster and faster as the tyres sort of get more up to temperature. Limited fuel though, so we've only got a few laps before the fuel's going to run out, and then we're going to jump to VR. So I'm unhappy there as we ran wide. Going up the gears. It says 5 laps of fuel, but we might actually have a bit less than that, to be honest. And again, look at this hairpin here. You cannot look around the corner, and you kind of you become automatically fixed on that centre of the field of view. And I noticed this, by the way, when I raced on triples recently. I was racing on triples and I was looking at people, and people weren't looking at the monitors on either side. And I was asking people, and I think it's because there's when there's bezels around the monitor, you almost don't want to look outside the boundaries of that monitor. And the thing is, in VR, you don't have any boundaries in your field of view. You just move your neck, and then you get that additional vision, which is really, really helpful. That was a bit of elevation change there, by the way, at Alton Park, and you don't really notice it. You don't really notice these bumps, I would say. You don't really feel them. See the bump there? And then there's going to be a bump down here, and there's a little bump before the braking zone. Just there. And then look at the elevation change here as you go down the hill. Yes, you're aware of it because you feel the wheel go lighter, and you know if you dump the throttle there, you're going to spin off to the right-hand side. As we go faster again, 29.3. So we're going to see if we can beat this in VR, obviously, in the same amount of time in the session. But you don't notice that elevation change, especially out here as well. See that bump? You're aware it exists, but you're not going to change your driving around it. I was a lot happy with the exit that time. Little nod to the apex. Again, I was on a motion rig recently, very expensive motion rig, that would really make you aware of elevation changes. Even somewhere like Silverstone, I was actually aware of like just subtle elevation changes, subtle camber changes really, and just a slight difference that it had on the car. And someone like Alton Park here is going to be mad. See how close we were to the barrier on the outside. I wasn't particularly happy about it. And again, it passes you by. You can't lock onto it. You can't fix your focus onto that and then sort of like really try and get as close as possible. You just almost may as well close your eyes and hope that you're going to go past it. So now we're getting really fast, relatively speaking, in the car. So it's all green sectors. So these are the lap times that we want to be comparing with VR here. Because I think there's such a thing as a ceiling as well. Like you can get to a point where you think you've hit a ceiling in sim racing. Like this is my limit. That's the lap time that I think is really good for me. And people I think are too quick to settle for that ceiling and not think about how am I going to get the other second that gets to the other top drivers in the world. As we go faster still, 29.1. So far it's a 29.1 as we are going to pick up a little off track there. So we just run a little bit wide. But we'll keep going, and you can see now the tyres are really gripping. We're using that pace. It's a difficult combination. The car doesn't have a lot of downforce with the setup that I put on it. The optimals are 28.6, so the optimal's half a second quicker. Coming in here, there's a little elevation change. See the camber? You don't notice it that much in 2D. We're going to see that's going to be a big difference in virtual reality. Coming into chicanes again, as we want to go faster, we want to push it even harder, get even closer. But unfortunately, you start to reach a point where you have to play it safe because you just don't really have that vision. You don't have stereoscopic 3D like you do in virtual reality. So you're sort of playing with fire a little bit. And then it becomes a bit more like a game than sim racing. So I'm not sure we're going to be fast this time. We might have time for another lap as well. We'll have a look what it's going to be. Really enjoyed this time trial, by the way. So also, if you're watching this video, thanks for joining us on the channel, and you're going to see some sort of examples of time trialing here, how I try and get faster. See, trying to build the pace rather than go like completely flat out at the beginning. Just build it, build it, build it. Stretch the pace a little bit. And try different things as well. Don't be afraid to try different things. But we are going to have a couple of push laps, I think. So 28.6 so far is the fastest, albeit with that slight off track, but it was a minimal off track. We'll take it, 28.6. Coming down here, going down to 4th gear. Just explain the lap, so when we look in VR, you'll see how it's going to be. And then this almost feels flat out corner here. Little lift into this braking zone where you can afford to lock up. It's not the end of the world as there's a little bit uphill at the end. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I just go for a little shift up to 5th. I don't know why I do that, but I do. Helps me. 2nd gear, and then really should be sacrificing the entry and doing a bit more on the exit. So we're losing a little bit of time. We are up at the moment though. And then we're going to come into the chicanes. Fiendishly difficult. 2nd gear and then 3rd gear immediately on the exit to avoid that wheel spin. And then it's all about the exit up the hill. And there's a lot more sort of grip available there at that low speed that can really push you up the hill. And then we've got the super fast right-hander, drop a gear down into 4th. If you're really struggling, going into 3rd, there we go. I was struggling that time around. You really have to hook it up with the braking. You have to get the car pitched in on the brakes. You're not just using the brakes there to slow the car down. You're also using it to actually manipulate the car and turn it. So this is going to be the last lap of 2D. We're going to see if VR does make us faster. Because immediately after this, I went into the VR. So last lap here with the lightest fuel. See, not the best start through the first corner, although we didn't get an off track. A little bit narrow there as well. We're going to get on the red curb, almost. Going to gain a bit of time on the exit. Remember, the car's at its lightest, so it's going to be the last lap. We don't have enough fuel to do another one. Little lift here, keeping it in 6th, couple of lifts. Then down to 1st gear, and then exit out in 2nd. Stamping on the throttle. And then we're going to try and get through the chicanes here, 3rd, 2nd. And, you know, we're having fun in 2D. It's good fun. I'm really locked in now. I'm not even thinking about a 2D screen. I'm just sort of in this world, trying to drive as fast as possible, as if, you know, I was driving the real thing. See, we're almost half second up. We'd go a little bit wide there, unfortunately. So we lose. We were half a second up. Although that was on the last time, not the 28.6 that would have been invalidated. So potentially we were on for like a 28.4 or something there. And even more time gained here, actually. But as it is, we made a little mistake. And we're going to go over the line. And what is it going to be? It's going to be time to beat, potentially. Another 28.6. So 2 28.6s there. With 2 little mistakes. So, jumping into VR now. The all-important moment. Are we going to go faster? I did half a lap just to check everything was working. And then I hit record and we're jumping out now. And I'm in the Pimax Crystal. This video is sponsored by Pimax, by the way. They sponsor my VR videos. I use their headsets that they gave me review units for. So go check out Pimax if you're interested in VR headsets. Very expensive though, so make sure you do your research. And if you want a discount code, and I get some commission as well, there's a link in the description. Let me know how you're getting on with the headsets. So this is us in that Pimax Crystal in iRacing. You can see first of all that I would say the graphics are pretty similar. So not too many dissimilarities with the graphics. This is very different to, for example, Gran Turismo 7 in PSVR 2. That has a different graphic mode, it feels, in VR. This is much closer, if not almost the same. It's not quite the same because I feel like there's some things differently done with like anti-aliasing and things like that I notice. A bit of shimmering as well. And we've got our lap time there. I'm sitting a little bit higher up in the cockpit, I noticed. Obviously you can just reset that, but I actually like sitting a little bit higher up But just so you know, this is a relatively high seating position, albeit the mirrors seem to be working fine. And sometimes when you sit low, the mirrors don't work. So maybe I sit too low other parts of the time. So let's we've had a warm up. Let's have a look at our driving in VR. I get the feeling that I'm a little bit more tense, even though I don't feel tense when I'm driving. Maybe the sensation of, you don't think you're in the real car, but you're feeling a lot of similar sensations. It's not scary being in VR. I just want to emphasize that. If you're going to crash, you're not worried that you're going to hurt yourself. Although, depending on how powerful your wheelbase is, that could happen. But it is very, very, very immersive, and it is very much an iRacing performance led as well. Because look at this hairpin, and we can look around the hairpin. See me look around the hairpin, just naturally there. My background is actually more in real world racing and sim racing, really, in the karting side. Have a look here as I look towards there and I just see, and then the exit. This is all stuff that I do in real life, especially in karting. Especially when there's little chicanes, we're trying to overtake people. See me here already glancing towards it there. And then that one, and then the exit. And then now I'm already looking towards the apex there. And I should be looking a little bit more towards the exit. And I should be letting my hands run free. Because you don't need to be applying more steering lock. And in fact, Nathan Matsman, pro racing driver, was around using this setup a few days ago. And he gave some really good advice. Which is if you've got time to keep the wheels straight, then you're not maximizing track width. So you kind of want to just gently arc out, maximize track width, take the best line, and definitely don't sort of apply too much lock on exit as well. You're just going to scrub speed. So we're starting to speed up now. Speaking of speed, so it was a 28.6 was our fastest in 2D. By the way, the car comes out equally cold here. It's all the same settings, all the same track temperature and time of day and everything. But to be 6/10 up here, I'm not sure on what time, doesn't look too bad. And you can see here, you can notice the camber, by the way, as you go up, and you feel, okay, the camber's going to go up. I'm not worried too much about locking up, because I'm going to get a little bit of assistance on the braking as I approach that camber. And I mean, that felt closer. I feel like I'm able to go a little bit closer on the exits. That might be what you call a performance advantage. Again, coming in here, third gear exit, keeping it nice and tight, nowhere near that grass on the outside where we got the penalty in the 2D lap. And already we seem to be getting up to pace quicker, but that could be because I did the 2D first. Like, you can't discount that. I just done however many laps in 2D, so I'm more familiar with the track coming into 3D than I was when I started 2D, if that makes sense. But in any event, I feel more comfortable, especially here at this hairpin. I feel so comfortable really feeling how much track is left. I know that if I lock up there, I can take a different exit of the corner and still salvage it. So it's worth the gamble. I feel like I pretty consistently did better at this corner here. I could just see around it a lot more and really hit that apex. If you look at this video, you're going to see that in VR, that corner is taken a lot better. 29.3 so far. So we've done 29.3, which is not as fast as our 2D lap. Although we're going to be about 4/10 up, so we'll be on a 28.9. So that will be 3/10 off. But let's see what happens here. We're going to brake late. Yeah, a little bit of a lock up there, but it's fine because we can look on the exit. Oh, no, hang on. Going to run wide a little bit. Didn't look at the exit enough. So we actually ran wide, which we didn't do in 2D once. And this is going to be a little bit of a theme you're going to see, is me feeling like I want to push it more in VR. And I think that's just me feeling more engaged. I feel more at one with the radical that I'm driving. And I just really want to try and go as fast as I can. Remember, this whole video is about whether you're faster in VR. So I want to put that to the test. Even with that sector there, losing a second, we're still, without that, we'd be 2/10 up. So we're still making progress. Nice line there, actually in the divot of that curb. I think that's a better line than any line that I took in 2D. So we'll go again on this one. Try and get a nice exit out in second gear. Let's keep an eye on what I'm doing with my vision here. So, on the brakes, looking around the corner, trying to get on that red. Powering out. Check for a penalty. I don't think it was a penalty, you can see. by the sectors there. Fourth gear, a little bit wide. Take a weird exit there. Might have gained a tiny amount on the exit, but really just wasn't really worth it going that deep. This corner as well should be more intuitive in VR. Remember, everything I'm seeing, like I said earlier, is in stereoscopic 3D. Again, another lock up there, but we're going to get on the power, get on the exit. We're not going to run wide this time. Especially if we want to beat... We're running out of time, actually. If we want to beat our 2D time. And if we don't beat our 2D time, then maybe VR doesn't make you faster. We will see. It's a bit of a cliffhanger now. So braking here just after the 100, down second gear, then third. A little bit too deep there. But again, I feel like I'm not going to clip that glass of grass on the right hand side. I just understand the perspective of the corner a little bit better, I feel. And this corner as well is just doing a little bit better than in 2D. Just on the brakes, leaning on it. Trying to aim for that second apex. That was a little bit wider, but you can see the delta there. Pretty good as well. So I get the feeling that if we're going to want to improve, it's going to need to be this lap. So we're coming for a bit of a narrower line in there, and then on the power. So here we go. That was a 29.3, not going to cut it. Brakes, fourth gear, turning, get on that red curve, power out, lovely, no penalty. Couple of tenths up already. Try and hit the brakes here firmly, fourth. Turn in, get on that red curve, power out, open the steering, which we can do in VR. Feeling relaxed now, so you look relaxed. And now we're going to turn in here, see, looking towards corner in VR, just identifying a bit earlier. 6 tenths up, coming in here, knowing the camber in VR. First gear, second gear, exit, really nice exit there. Little bit of an over rev, but really nice exit. Momentarily fifth, and down fourth, third, second. Power out. You can kind of see that curb on the inside. Looked like it didn't want to be messed with. We're a second up right now. A second up. 28.3, that'd be 3 tenths quicker if we hold it. Through the chicanes there. Goodness me. Still a second up. And you see, looking through the corners, we are right now, we are faster in VR than 2D. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that or disagree, but I think we're faster in VR now. We kind of reached that moment where we're just comfortable in VR in this race or this time trial session. We're comfortable with the car. Braking here quite late. This is a huge, oh my goodness me. 1.4 seconds up. So what is it going to be? It's actually going to be a 27.9, which is crazy. I think very, very quick. A very quick lap time that. 27.9. And potentially you can go even faster. So again, looking into the corner, looking for that red, kind of peripherally looking at the exit there, glancing up at the delta you can see. What we're going to do here, little lift in, 6th gear. Heavy on the brakes, late on the brakes. Big lock up. We'll try and aim for an apex down, picking it out and bang, there we go. And we'll gain a little bit back on the exit. Just got to avoid these barriers now. Third, second. Oh, a little bit deep again, but with the car so light, we're going to make a bit more time down the straight. So all to play for here. 100, come in. Nice. Oh my goodness me, that was so unbelievably close. Oh, a little spin. A little spin. So, and then you can see I feel really like I'm pushing it in VR. We're going to give it another shot because you can see how close I was to chicanes there. And what I can tell you is that's very different from being in 2D where I didn't really know where I was in relation to those chicanes. Whereas in VR, I felt like I can really push this. It's down to me. And that's something that I've also felt in VR. Running at 120 Hz on both setups, 120 FPS in 2D, 120 Hz in VR on the Pimax Crystal. And I feel like in the Pimax Crystal, it's more down to me. Like, I can't make the complaint of, oh, I didn't see on the screen, or it was difficult, or I lost concentration. Much less likely to lose concentration in VR, by the way. I think that's a big unspoken. Obviously, another unspoken is, well, hang on, if VR makes you faster, why don't more esports drivers use it? And I think it must be about fatigue. It must be about, you know, you shouldn't... The VR headset you should be using in moderation, really. You shouldn't be... well, I'm not sure. I don't think you should be using it like 12 hours a day. I think even Pimax would say that. Coming through here, smashing through here. So again, very close. Basically the same time as previously, so it is all to play for. Braking at the 100, braking quite late. Second gear, not bad. And oh, just too close that time. Just too close to the barrier. Goodness me. So, well, anyway, we were faster, and you can see we were on track to be, I think, just as fast in that lap. Foiled by the barrier. I don't think I would have come that close in 2D. I just wouldn't have risked it. But in VR, I'm just addicted to sort of glancing it, because you just almost want to feel it being so close, and you feel like, yes, I'm taking the best line, which is very, very, very addictive. So the proof is 27.9 in VR and a 28.6 in 2D. And I just genuinely feel like from this that VR made me faster. Let me know what you think in the comments, your experiences. Do go check out the Pimax Crystal headsets if you want to, the link in the description and a discount code. And I'll see you next time.